Welcome to the Pave Podcast. Join us as we explore innovative biblical strategies and revolutionary tools to empower you to be a catalyst for church growth. Be inspired by church growth practitioners who are expanding God's kingdom in their communities and around the world. Now here's your host, Jonathan L. Smith.
Hey guys, welcome to the Pave Podcast, where we help pastors discover new paths for church growth. I'm Jonathan Smith, the Director of Church Health and Growth at Texas Baptist, aka the Baptist General Convention of Texas. The Pave Podcast is made possible by your gifts and contributions to the cooperative program at Texas Baptist, and also by giving to the Mary Hill Davis offering of the WMU of Texas. Today, I'm honored to have a longstanding friend of mine, Pastor Josh Murray, who is the lead pastor of Canyon Creek Baptist Church in Temple, Texas. Josh, thanks for joining me on the Pave Podcast today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here with you.
Man, I tell you, when we first met at your church in Temple, it was a moment I won't soon forget. You'll have to remind me of exactly the numbers, but we were just talking generally about the church. This has been about 4 years ago now, almost 5, and I said, well, tell me, what's the age of your staff? And your answer was?
Well, at the time, I was just 27 as a lead pastor. Our other two pastors, our student pastor and worship pastor, were each 24. We have a 65-year-old children's director and a 75-year-old secretary. So we're a diverse and age bunch.
Yeah, man, it was amazing to hear the difference in age. But what we're going to talk about today is simple. This is one of those episodes where we just want pastors out there who are leading revitalization to be encouraged. So today we're going to talk about how God has revitalized Canyon Creek Baptist Church under Josh and his current team's leadership. So, Pastor Josh, just kind of walk us through the story of Canyon Creek Baptist Church in Temple, Texas, and your revitalization story.
Well, Canyon Creek was planted as a mission of another church here in Temple in 1978, and was kind of at the time planted on the outside of town, right at the edge of Temple. Now, because of the growth that we've experienced over the years, we're right in the middle of town. Canyon Creek had a really strong start. You know, for the first 20 or so years of its life, Canyon Creek did really well. They served their community well. That was kind of the goal and the mission of the church. It's named after the neighborhood that we're in. And so their mission was to serve the Canyon Creek neighborhood and the south side of Temple well, and to be a light to this part of the city. And at different parts of the history of the church, they've done that really well. And then there are some parts of the history of the church that weren't as healthy, times where the church wasn't as healthy. And I came to Canyon Creek in the middle of one of those times. I got here in May of 2017. I came on staff to be the student pastor, to lead the youth and college ministries. And my wife and I kind of came into the church, and I'll just describe a little bit of what was going on at the time. We had two different services. We had a traditional service, a contemporary service. Each one of them had about 40 to 50 people attending, and none of those people were really happy. The culture of the church was kind of downtrodden. Things weren't going very well. There wasn't a lot of growth. We weren't baptizing new believers. It was just a difficult season. I think a lot of things contributed to that, of course. So we came in and we started working with the students and just trying to bring some new life into the student ministry and the college ministries here at the church. About a year into that, our senior pastor at the time, he resigned and went on to pursue some other opportunities. And the church asked me immediately, hey, would you come in and serve as our pastor just temporarily? Which I was 23 at the time. Their ask was this: we don't really have anyone else, nor do we have any money to pay anyone else. So do you want to be our interim pastor?
Right.
And I said, let me pray about that and talk to some friends of mine, and I'll get back to you. And I did. And the following day I said, yeah, I'll do that. And so we my wife and I just kind of began to serve in that role temporarily, and just to bridge that gap until they'd hire someone that would kind of come in and take things over from there. And so we started doing that, and we opened up our process of applying, and I felt that God was leading me to do that. And so I applied for the position, and a few months later, the church hired me. And at the time, we looked at this church and where it was, and we had no idea what to do, being very honest. At that time, I was now 24. I'd never been a lead pastor before. I never led a church before. And I was definitely sort of the odd one out. Our average age at the time was in the early 70s. And so here's a church of about 80 people, not all, of course, in their 70s, but that's kind of our average age at the time. And now I'm leading them, which I'm sure most of them were uncomfortable with, but they did choose me. We didn't really know where to start, to be honest with you. We sometimes use the phrase, we've just got to keep the ball moving forward, keep the ball going down the field or whatever it is. But what we really had was a deflated ball. And we didn't even really know how to get air back into it, or how to bring it back to health and bring it back to life. And so all of that was happening right about the time that COVID began. We kind of walked through the beginning of that, and then I got in touch with you and with your team through Texas Baptist, and came in and really helped us figure out what we just needed to do to get things started and to get things going. And so immediately we just began to kind of try and create a new culture within the church, a culture of positivity, a culture of possibility, just casting a vision and challenging the church. Here's where we are, here's where we'd like to be. What steps do we need to take to get there? And one of the things that we began to do very early on is we were kind of a popular church coming out of the pandemic. We were one of the first ones to reopen our doors, and we had this huge 400-seat sanctuary with 60 to 80 people coming. And so we you could social distance if you wanted to, and everyone could still fit. And so because of that, we had a lot of people visiting. We had a lot of people coming and checking us out and wanting to learn more, but they weren't really sticking. They'd come to visit for a Sunday or two, and then they'd kind of fall through the cracks and not return. And so one of the very first things that Pave helped us to do is to create a process to get these people connected to the church. Yeah. And so, we were just about every week during that time, we were having between 5 and 10 new people visiting. And so we developed a process to help get those people connected, to help get them to come back. And so we began to do this very simple but very effective visitor follow-up. And we developed an assimilation process. And the first time we had it, we invited about 50 new people to the church. And the following Sunday, 36 of them joined in one day.
Man, I remember the phone call.
Yeah.
I remember the phone call, because that was kind of when I stepped in, when Pave was really still being written. And I had just started working at the convention at Texas Baptist, and came on site, and we talked and just kind of talked through some things. And I remember very distinctly when you called and said, "You're not going to believe this." And sure enough, it was hard to believe. I've discovered a little bit of strategy in a revitalization context goes a long way. So that was a shot in the arm. Keep telling us more.
Yeah. So that was just one day. We had 36 people join our church in one day, and we do that assimilation class. We call it Next Steps. We do that quarterly here, and we regularly now, even that's been 3 years ago, we still have between 15 to 25 people attending that every quarter and joining our church, which is awesome. And so the goal, coming out of that is they're not just here, but they're coming out of our assimilation program. We want them to be in a group where they're learning and forging community with other believers. We want them to be serving on a team. We want them to know a little bit about how God created them and what their purpose in life is, and how they can discover that and live that out here in the context of our church. We want them to be giving. And so since we started doing that, we've added over 120 new members to our church. And so our church has doubled in size just in these last few years.
So I think there's something too, also, when people in a community see a young pastor, that's just, I think, intriguing. And of course, you've got a great team that are working around you. You're a great leader. You're a great preacher. So tell us the age thing. On the one hand, we laughed a few minutes ago. Here you are, in your not even mid-20s yet, and you're leading a congregation of people that could be your grandparents, and honestly,
Yeah.
probably treated you somewhat like a grandson. But how was age, your young age, and then being older? Tell us about how that gap was diminished and how God used you as a young pastor for this church to be revitalized.
Yeah, that's a great thing for us to talk about. When I came in, I talked to a lot of young pastors. Uh, just, hey, this is my first time. I'm very young. Ironically, I was younger than all of them when they started. So I was like, I've got it even worse than you do, buddy. So, but one thing that I heard over and over again from these guys is like, man, I just came in and I shook things up, and
Hmm.
some people stuck around and some people didn't, and I didn't want to take that approach.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you helped me to do is to challenge the church to produce change and progress in a way that brings people along, in a way that is
Yeah.
done in love, in a way that is,
Yep.
not just rushing to get results, but slow so that everyone wants to be a part.
Yep.
And, so doing things that way, even if people didn't agree, with everything that we did or every change that we made, we tried to do everything from a posture of, hey, here's why we're doing this. We're going to
Right.
communicate this very clearly. We're going to bring you along in the process. And we're doing this ultimately so that more people from our community who are lost and hurting will get in these doors and meet Jesus. And so rather than just kind of shaking things up and being this revolutionary rebel sort of leader, what we did is we wanted to bring everybody along. And I can honestly say that all of the people that were here then are still here now. And
Wow. Really?
simply, right,
Really?
absolutely, because of just the speed and the intentionality, and not just, looking at people and saying, no, you're wrong, we're right, this is the way we're going to do it from here on out, but saying, hey, we want you to be a part of this. And lost souls are going to be saved, and people are going to encounter Jesus. And what is greater than a church who, is able to do that? I still think to this day, there are people who maybe wish we would have done things a little bit differently, or wish things would have turned out a little bit differently than they did. Those people are now excited to see people being baptized and people coming to faith and people becoming a part of our community. So,
Yeah. You said it earlier. You said something like we wanted to lead from a position of positivity.
right.
And I think that's where it's at. There's, pastors, if you're listening today, there's really kind of two ways to do church revitalization. One is you rip the carpet out from underneath them and you change things within, a year, maybe two. Typically, you lose a higher percentage of the people, but the research I've read would show that you actually grow back faster, which is interesting, and it makes it attractive. But the other side of that, though, is who do we injure along the way? And this is what I'm convinced of, Josh. One of the things I'm excited about us talking on this podcast today is that you have not injured the people whose shoulders you stood on when you first arrived and whose shoulders you're still standing on. And so I think there's an overarching biblical principle that's born out of the Ten Commandments to honor your father and your mother. Then we see Paul and Timothy dialogue about that. Paul tells Timothy to treat the people who are older than him since he was young with the same respect that he would show his own parents. And none of us would want to rip the carpet of change out from underneath our parents. So I think this long form is arduous, is harder. And truth be told, it doesn't always work. It just doesn't always
It doesn't.
work.
Yeah.
But in your instance, it really has. So you said positivity and then changing the culture. Tell us about the new culture that is alive at Canyon Creek today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I mentioned before, when we got here, there were two different services. We had a
Right.
traditional service and a contemporary service, and a lot of churches do that really well. There are churches here in
Yep.
our city who do that very, very well. It wasn't done very well here at Canyon Creek.
Mm.
It was a very divisive thing that very much
Mm-hmm.
felt like two different churches instead
Sure.
of two services in one church.
Mm.
And so, one of the things that we wanted to do early on was to bring those groups of people back together.
Right.
And we knew that that was going to be difficult simply because of the fact that these people wanted to worship with this kind of music and these people wanted to worship with, and neither one of them
Right.
wanted to really sacrifice in order to get the church back together again. And that's where COVID really helped us, kind of when we reopened after a short closure, we reopened with one service, and it's blended and it's awesome and everybody loves it. But it did take some time. And so
Sure.
just by kind of creating a culture of positivity and hope, saying, hey, if we are willing to sort of surrender some of the preferences that we have, some of the traditions that we're holding so fastly to, if we can surrender some of that, we can usher in sort of a new spirit here. And it really is a spirit of unity. It really is a spirit of togetherness. And it really is a spirit that wants to see lost people saved.
Yeah.
And just painting a picture of what that could look like, painting a picture
Mm.
of, a person who has never been to church in their life. What kind of experience do they want to have when they walk in the
Yep.
doors? And I think being that, being
Mm.
that kind of church, not just talking about it, but actually saying, no, we're going to do this.
Right.
That culture and that hope and that desire, it becomes infectious and it spreads to
Mm.
people so quickly, when we embody that and choose that that's what we want to be. And so that was really sort of a defining moment for us, getting everybody back in the room together and saying, hey, things are going to
Mm.
look different, but here's why they're going to look different. And we want you to be a part of this. We've sort of placed that ownership on them every step of the way. Hey, you're a part of this church, you're a part of this family, and we want you to be a part of what God's going to do here in the next 5 years, 10 years, and here's how we're going to start it.
Right.
And so that culture just infused those kind of that kind of teaching and that kind of vision casting just infused the people of our church with a whole lot of hope for what, things could be. And many of the people were here when things were that way, years
Right.
and years ago. And so the fact that we can just encourage them, hey, this is possible. We can get the church back to that place. We can, be healthy again. But it
Hmm.
really, for us, it all started with changing some mindsets and changing the culture. So,
I wrote an article a few years ago about worship wars, and the title of
yeah.
it, you can find it on the TXP website, was called "Worship Wars: The War That Never Was," because the truth is, it's not a war. It's just selfishness. It's
Yeah.
all that it is. So you really addressed that in a positive type way, but you used a moment ago the word preferences and traditions. Tell us a little bit about how did you help. That requires some poking of the bear, right?
Yeah.
You have to point out the preferences. You have to point out maybe some selfish behavior. So, how did you? What are a few steps that you could encourage a pastor who's listening, who's like, "Man, I'm stuck in the middle of that." How did you pastorally address those issues?
Well, specifically the music preferences and that kind of thing, that seemed like an obstacle that we were never going to get past. And that took a lot of prayer and just a lot of intentionality in the way we had those conversations. But what we encouraged our people to do, the people who were dead set on not having contemporary music, we just encouraged them to listen to it all the time. When they get in the car, put it on the radio, you know.
So you told the people who were kind of more in the traditional camp
Yeah.
to listen to contemporary worship music. Okay, keep going.
As much
Interesting.
as they can. When you get in the car, turn it on. When you're at home and you want something in the background, turn it on and see if you don't start to like it.
Huh.
Listen to the words, listen to the lyrics, and see if it
Hmm.
doesn't start to, become something that you enjoy listening to. And I would say a majority of those people today would say, you know what, I really love this music. I think there are probably still a few that would say, I really don't, but you know what, they're here and they're standing and they're singing. But we just encourage them, hey, give it a chance, give it a try. I think what a lot of people were afraid of is, well, if we change the music, what's going to change next?
Mm.
And
Right.
I think we're living in a time where we see churches that are sacrificing a lot of things like truth in an effort to be relevant to, the people. And so we kind of said, hey, we're not going to go down that road. We're just looking at getting more people in the door. And I think one of the ways we do that is to do music a little bit differently. And
Hmm.
so, but again, that we wanted to lovingly bring people along with that rather than just saying, no, these are the songs we're doing. We want you to grow to really love them. And so
Interesting.
our services now, we would say they're blended. We do a mix of contemporary music and hymns, but even when we do hymns, we do them with the band. And so they're sort of contemporary renditions of these hymns. And one of the things that we do is we still have any month that we have a fifth Sunday, we do a hymn sing. And it's
Hmm.
just the
Okay.
piano and hymns. And so if that's your thing, show up. We have about 25 people that come every time and they just get to choose their hymns they're going to sing and they love it.
Yep.
So we tried again not to, like you said, just rip the rug out from under them and remove all of this. We really tried to disciple them and teach them, hey, that these things can be good. These things can be just as worshipful. You can grow to a place where you're worshiping God the same way with these songs as you do with
Mm.
these hymns that you've loved for so long. And seeing that happen in these people's lives has been so much fun.
Yeah.
Seeing people who 5 years ago, when we would do a contemporary song, would sit and sort of cross their arms. Now they're singing and worshiping. It's just an amazing thing.
Yeah, that is an issue of the heart, and that's why it's the word that never was, because it's yeah. So to see that they are standing, worshiping, engaged now means that God has done something to their
That's right.
hearts, right?
Yeah.
He's changed their hearts. So fast forward to today, if you would. Um, Again, you've been there for multiple years now, and so now it's not a church any longer of a pastor in his early 30s and senior adults. I'm sure you've done a lot of funerals along the way, unfortunately.
Yes, we have.
But it's been a new skill that you have developed very, very well, I have no doubt. So what is the church like now, growth-wise? What is it like numerically? But then what is it like in its makeup of age?
So through the last several years, as we've grown, we have grown to be more diverse
Mm.
age-wise. So our average age is down from like 72 to 42, which is amazing.
Wow.
But,
That's a
but
huge drop.
yeah, absolutely.
Huge.
But the part of that that's so cool for us is we have gained just as many senior adults as we have young people. So and as a young team of pastors, we have to be really intentional to make sure we're still reaching senior adults.
Sure.
But that's something that's important to us. And so as we've grown both with new senior adults and we've grown with a lot of young people as well. And so our average age has dropped about 30 years. Our weekly attendance, we average about 225 now, which is up from 60 or 75 5 years ago, which is great. Our Bible study, I mean, we have, when I got here, there were 3 different Bible study groups. We have 8 now that are meeting throughout
Mm.
the week, different days, different times. And some of those are, of course, on Sunday mornings, but others are at other times and throughout the week and homes and here at the church. And so we've seen a lot of really great growth. But I think the coolest part of that is that it would be so easy for us just to reach young people, as a young
Yeah.
pastor, as a young staff. But that hasn't been the case here. We have grown just as many, seniors that were new to the area or weren't, believers. I mean, we baptized 2 years ago an 86-year-old woman who
Let's
had been a
go.
Jew her entire life and came
Wow.
to the Lord at our church and wanted to be a part of what we were doing. And so
Wow.
those are the moments that are so powerful. I never had it on my list that I'd baptize an 86-year-old Jewish woman, but we did. So the growth has been so diverse.
Yeah, you probably baptize her very carefully, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
just
The
treat
water
those
was really
different.
cold that day. It took a long time.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That's funny. I think we all have those baptism stories that things didn't work
Yeah.
out exactly the way that we
Right.
anticipated.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So under your leadership, the church has almost quadrupled.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So pastors listening, I just want you to be encouraged, right? Like Josh stepped into a difficult circumstance. He stepped into a very hard circumstance, but God has used him. God has used his laity. God has used his staff around him. God has seen him through, and God has turned this around, and therefore God gets all the glory. God gets all the credit,
Absolutely.
right? So let's go back to one thing that you talked about a minute ago, because you're an example of a theory that I have. I think it's very hard for a younger person to step into a senior adult church and become a part of it. You have accomplished that by the power of God's Spirit. But what I find to be the opposite is that it's really easy for a senior adult or a senior adult family, husband and wife, to step into a church that is young, because it reminds them of several things. One, it reminds them of their own youthfulness. It reminds them of their family. And maybe most importantly, it reminds them of their kids and grandkids that they don't get to see as often as they would like. And so then the church becomes this extended family for them and meets a real need in their lives to be around younger people. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So, pastors, if you're listening, kind of the principle here is in order for, if you're pastoring a church that is older, maybe not quite, you're 24 and the average age is in their 70s, but something, similar to that. If you can talk with guests and say, listen, God is revitalizing our church, would love for you to come be a part and to help this church to grow in all ways, but specifically, right, that growing younger can be an incredible challenge that not many pastors will stay around long enough to see it happen. You have any thoughts in response to that concept?
Absolutely. I think one of the greatest ways to breathe new life into the church and to raise the sort of the psychology of the people is
Yep.
to grow young, because
Yep.
just as you said, it's maybe easier for an older pastor to come into a younger church because it reminds them of the younger people
Mm-hmm.
in their lives that they love, children, grandchildren. And that's
Right.
exactly what has happened here, but with the new people. And so
Right.
now our group of faithful seniors who have been here forever, now they have all these young people to love on and to lead and to
Mm-hmm.
be an example for, that
Exactly.
many of which are new believers, many of which haven't walked with the Lord for very long. And so for our seniors to have all these people that are, ready to learn from their example and ready to be loved by them, just even in practical ways is really, really, really cool. And so that's one of the things we don't really have a problem here getting our seniors involved in serving, because so many of them just want to serve with the kids again. And
Yeah.
and and
Yep.
so giving them the place to do that and having the kids here for them to serve, and for them to teach and for them to lead is really, really cool and a lot of fun for them.
What's so great about your story in churches that I work alongside, those senior adults who maybe who were there when you became the interim and then the senior pastor, the ones who were frustrated perhaps with some decisions that were made, some changes that were made, if you could give them the choice now, almost all of them would choose the church now compared to the church that they were at then. And I think the reason pastors listening is because they see life at the church once again. And listen, the church could have never grown young. The church could have stayed the same that it was age-wise, and the church could have expanded and grown, and they would still be excited.
Absolutely.
It's not just about the age, it's about the
Right.
expansion of God's kingdom, right? And so what you've done really well is to put some of those ideas on display. That's the turning the culture. So, Pastor, if you're listening, the temptation is to step in, change the bylaws, change the structures, change the deacons, maybe add elders, all those things. There's nothing wrong with those ideas. You might get there at some point, but that's not the place to start. The place to start is shifting the culture back to Christ and his mission, shifting the hearts of the people to worship him, to love him, shifting the hearts of the people to love one another, to love their community. That will take you it'll take longer, but it'll take you way farther than stepping in and just being a disruptor. So, Pastor Joss, you were in the first cohort at Pave, and so you guys were our guinea pigs. I don't know that you even have all the things that Pave offers now, but you'll be getting that soon as the Pave manual is coming out. As we're starting to wind down this podcast today, tell us about a Pave principle, maybe one that we haven't talked about yet that was really, really helpful, how you used it, what God did in your life or in your church with that principle.
I think the one that has helped us the most, even early on, all the way to today, is
Hmm.
just the principle of challenge and change and progress, and
Yeah,
how
great.
those, teaching and preaching in a way that challenges the current place of the church, the current culture of the church,
Yep.
and just how to do that. I think it's so critical that even from the pulpit, we're talking about what we want to become as a church and displaying
Hmm.
that. And so
Yep.
just there's the teaching on how to do that well, and then challenging that to bring about change and progress in the church. Um, that principle has been just so helpful for us as we've sought to make changes and to make some adjustments that would ultimately lead in the church becoming healthier and expanding the kingdom of God. And so learning how to do that well has been so helpful for us. And even now, if I could mention another one,
Yep.
how to develop new leaders in the church. As the church has grown, we've needed new leaders for new teams and new ministries and new,
Right.
teachers to teach and lead small groups, and new people to help with hospital visits and things like this. And so, you have a lot of people that want to do things, and that's awesome. But what we really need are some new leaders. And they're, sometimes they just show up. Hey, I'm here. I'm ready to lead. I have this sort of natural leadership. Most of the time they don't. And so you
Right.
have to kind of develop that in them. And again, where do we start? How do we do that? Pave helped us really to figure out how to develop leaders that are already here so that they can carry out the mission of the church as well.
Yeah, so good. Pastor Josh, we are just amazed at what God has done in your church. We're thankful for your example, for your story. We're really grateful that your people listened to a really, really young pastor. You're not quite as young anymore. You're still young,
Right.
you're not in your 20s anymore. But so thank you for being one of those
Yes.
early Pave adopters, for jumping in. So tell us, what do you anticipate as we close today? What do you anticipate the next few years? What is next for Canyon Creek Baptist Church in Temple, Texas?
And I think we're gonna keep doing what we're doing. We're gonna keep growing, keep reaching new people in the community, keep baptizing new believers. We are now focusing more on outreach and evangelism. Now that
Yeah.
we've kind of gotten the culture to a healthy place, now we can be more strategic and intentional about getting more people in the door. So we're working on that, and we're getting ready to work on a vision process as well, where we really define what we want to become in the next 5 and 10 years. And so the way we kind of communicated around here is that now we're at a healthy place where we can be more strategic and intentional about
Right.
reaching more lost people, going out into the community more, serving them, inviting them in, and then creating a vision but for the next several years. And so those are our next steps, and we're looking forward to working with you and with your team on all of those things. And so we're just excited about what God is doing. And one of the things I always remember hearing you say is, if you can explain what God is doing in your church, then He's not the one doing it.
That's
And I
right.
love that
Yeah.
because it's such a good reminder for us. Yes, we're honored to be a part of what He's doing, but ultimately He's the one that's doing the work.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
my encouragement to anyone listening would be that if God can do that here at Canyon Creek, He can do it in your church as well.
Come on.
And we're just grateful for the work that He's doing, grateful for your help and all of it, and excited for the next several years and where God's going to take us as a church.
Man, it's a great future ahead, and we're honored to walk beside you and other pastors in the great state of Texas who are working on leading church revitalization. Well, hey everyone, thanks for listening to the Pave Podcast today. You can learn more about the ministries of Texas Baptist, the Baptist General Convention of Texas, by going to txb.org. That's like Texas Baptist, txb.org, where you can find all the ministries here at Texas Baptist that we offer. If you need help with missions, if you need help with discipleship, if you need help with worship, if you want to connect with one of our universities, if you're interested in Baptist student ministry, oh my goodness, Texas Baptist has so many ministries. I've been a Texas Baptist pastor for 33 years. I've worked at the convention for almost 5 years now. I'm still learning about the ministries of Texas Baptist. So txb.org, we're here to serve you. If you want to know more about PAVE, the Texas Baptist Church Health and Growth Revitalization Strategy, you can go to txb.org/PAVE. That's txb.org/PAVE. Pastor Josh, great days ahead. I'll see you sometime soon. Thanks for your time
Yes,
today.
thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.